Okay, so welcome back, and now we have the TOD. So this was a thread I found on R9K. So I censored the OP pic. It wasn't anything too explicit, but I'm a little worried. So basically, the OP says, "Is this how women really want to be treated?" And the WebM is a video, a short clip of a guy and who I assume to be his girlfriend, and the guy is punching her. Now, apparently, this is like some couple that are into like really rough play where the guy gets really physical. You know, you got some girls who like being slapped and tied up during sex and things like that. But, you know, this video just looked like a domestic abuse situation. But again, apparently they set these situations up. The girl is into it. So there is no crime being committed. You know, it's consensual. But the OP is asking, is this how women really want to be treated? And so that's what the topic of this thread is about women who like abusive men or abusive sex and things like that. So let's get right into it. So this guy says, it's not how they want to be treated, but it's the only behavior they will respect and acknowledge. And then the guy under him says, at this point, I'm assuming nothing. They've got to verbalize what they want if they want it. That's a good idea. This guy says, given they keep going back to these men, yes. And then the guy under him says this to the top guy, you can use logic and reason all day and tell them 10,000 reasons to not do something and they will still do it. You beat them, they won't do it. I have to bend my girlfriend over my knee and paddle her ass till she's bawling and then stand her naked in the corner for 30 minutes. But it fucking works. Because God knows trying to be respectful and treating her like an equal and all that nice boyfriend horse shit did nothing but make her disrespect me. Once the spanks and naked corner standing and slap started, she suddenly became a proper behaved lady and doesn't need punishments for her stupid chooses to do it her behavior. Now, you guys know me. I'm 100% against hitting women, slapping, punching, abuse. I'm 100% against that. I know some guys think that makes me a beta, a pussy, a cuck, but I'm against that. And I'm against that for several reasons. I think that, one, when you hit a woman, because now, like, we're not just talking about like playful, I'm just turned on by this type of shit. Like, we're talking about in terms of actually trying to keep your woman in check, right? The problem with this, with trying to use physical force to keep a woman in check. Now, of course, if you live in like Saudi Arabia or some shit, if you live in a country where feminism is non-existent and women don't have the same rights as they do in America and in the West and other first world countries, then that's different. You can probably kill them and get a slap on the wrist for all I know. But, you know, assuming you live in a first world country, the problem with this type of method of trying to control your girl is that it can always be used against you. Every time you hit her, you're giving her ammunition to use against you should she come back and say, oh, he did this and I want to take him down. I want to hurt him. Because I see toxic relationships up close a lot of times. And one thing that I notice is that when it comes to, you know, toxic women, one thing that they try to do is they try to get ammunition to use against the man. And so they'll try to provoke the guy into doing things like hitting him and shit like that. And that's what they want. They want that because when you do that, you give them a part of your soul. You are doing something that if it reaches the light of day, it's going to hurt your reputation. And so, you know, when I see guys like this who talk about using physical violence to control their women, to try to control the girl that they're with, you know, I think it's a very bad tactic. It's a very risky tactic to try to use, because that the same force that you're trying to use can easily be used against you. And like I said too, it's about taking your soul. And so you can talk about this online, but would you tell your family that this is how you keep your girl under control? Would you tell your friends? Is this something that you can stand on in public? That's why I don't recommend it. Other than just the fact that, beating the shit out of people is not not exactly friendly behavior. But, the thing is, I've always been more of a believer in, of course, not letting a woman disrespect you and walk all over you. But I believe that our power as men in relationships and really in life in general is the freedom and the ability to walk away. Just walk away. If she's not respecting you, if her behavior is not in line with your program, then don't deal with her. Because trying to force the situation is only going to line you up for attack further down the line. Just look at Chris Brown and Rihanna as the perfect example of what happens when you try to use force to control a woman, and then she uses that against you. So this guy says, I imagine not all men can get away with doing this. If you are Chad, she will become obedient and maybe she will feel like jumping on your cock later. But if you slap her and you look more on the Twinkie side, she will either call the police or have somebody break your legs. Am I right? I think, I don't even think you necessarily have to be a Chad to do stuff like that. It's more about just what the dynamics of their relationship is, because, this type of behavior can be very dark, right? Where you have situations where women are with men that abuse them physically and beat on them, and those women are literally too afraid to leave that guy. They're too afraid to leave their relationship. They are in fear for their lives and things like that. And you don't have to be right. You don't have to be highly attractive to instill that sort of fear into a woman. I'm sure there have been plenty of ugly, fat, just dusty, greasy looking guys who were able to abuse their women just by using fear and intimidation. So I don't think that it's necessarily something that's unique to Chads. I think that it has more to do with just the mentality of the guy and the mentality of the woman. And if she's weak enough to allow a guy to intimidate her into accepting the abuse. But you can also say, let's look at it from a different perspective, like the earlier guy, where I wish I didn't have to, but this is how I control my girl. Then I would say, then that might be a situation where, yeah, she might need to be strongly attracted to you for that to work. Like, if you're not a complete tyrant, like, I'm gonna kill you if you try to leave. Right? If you're not that guy and you're just trying to use physical violence as a means of correcting her behavior, I think that's when you might need to be more attractive, right? Because you're not really using fear at the utmost of what you could, in terms of how men like that tend to use it, where I'm gonna kill you if you leave me. I'm murder suicide with the kids. Right? It's that level of intimidation and threat and fear that even an ugly guy could use to control a woman. But if you're just trying to use it sporadically to correct her behavior, then you're more likely to have it used against you, unless she has a strong attraction towards you. And so this guy says, the only kind of women who want to be treated this way were probably sexually abused as girls. And since their dad was abusive, they're attracted to high aggression dipshit men. And because they don't understand boundaries or have a concept of identity or self, they do stupid shit which pisses off said high aggression dipshit who thinks he's getting easy ass. Another fun fact, when women are sexually abused as children, they undergo puberty earlier. So if you see a 10-year-old girl with that's someone who's been sexually abused before 8. This has all kinds of psychological and physiological consequences. A lot of them become codependent or narcissistic. Some become psychopathic and exploitative. The body keeps the score by Vanderkolk goes into this. What? Oh, that's a book. If you have to beat the shit out of your woman, you are doing it wrong, Anons. You can't date a girl with daddy issues without first being her daddy. And because you have to be her daddy, shit gets weird fast. If you've got one of those, she needs psychotherapy. And I agree. I think if you have to beat the shit out of your woman, I completely agree. And again, you're beating the hell out of a woman. I mean, let's just like just look at the negative energy of that type of action, those types of interactions, especially if that's a method that you have to use regularly. You know, you're in a situation where in your own personal home, your private life, you know, you have to deal with this negativity, the negative energy that you have to put out to control her based on the negative energy that she's putting out too. So it's just like, what type of man would even want to deal with that in the first place? Now, one thing that stands out to me, I was watching a short documentary about Little Kim, you know, the female rapper. And she was talking about how she always ended up in relationships with abusive men who would physically abuse her. And she admitted, though, that she was drawn to men like that. She was attracted to men like that. So there are girls out there who just have an inclination towards abusive men. But the guy replies to him and says, Keck, lots of women want a man who is far more violent than her father. She hates her dad for being weak. Long story short, women are inherently a mess. And again, I think you have female nature and certain patterns and trends that you can find across the board. But, you know, there are women out there who aren't so crazy to, you know, stay in a relationship with a guy that's going to beat them. But too often do you hear about, and I say more often, you hear about women who stay in abusive relationships as opposed to a woman who, I got hit one time and left, right? Which one do you hear more often? You hear about the girl that was getting beat and abused for years until she was finally able to escape the relationship, as opposed to the girl that was like, I got hit one time and I was gone. So this guy says, what needs to be said about this is that this is absolutely needs to be done in a controlled role play environment. So he's talking about it from a sexual perspective, not I'm trying to beat my woman to control her perspective, with trust and safe words. That being said, if a chick is into this, I leave. I can deal with some mental issues, but I've had my share of mentally unstable women. And then he replied to these guys, true, there's a healthy and fun way to do BDSM or just dominate your partner in general. And that's true. Now, me being into pornography, but also being into, you know, you can go to places like Reddit, for instance, where you can talk to real everyday people about their fetishes, where they express what they're into and how they, you know, the different things they do with their wives or what they do with their husbands or boyfriends and girlfriends. And sometimes, you know, things get very kinky. But one thing I've learned, you know, by lurking in these spaces is that, yeah, like some girls, they like rough sex. The same way you have some guys who like being tied up. You got guys who like being spanked or ball busting. The sort of like humiliating sex, you know, where the girl is stepping on the man's face sitting while calling him names. So it goes both ways, where you have women and men who are into rough sex that, you know, sort of toes the line between being physically abusive but also not wanting to cross that line into actually harming the person too much, right? But this guy's basically saying that he wouldn't want to deal with a girl who was into this. Now, it must be said, though, that WebM, that dude was straight punching the girl, like bop, 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 bop. But apparently, again, there was a camera there, so the story is that that's what they do. That's what she's into. Now, girls that are into straight up being punched, that's rare. I've seen the slapping, I've seen the spanking, and even one thing I'll tell you this. I've seen porn where, there's the sex is kind of rough and there's some choking and slapping. But one thing I've noticed when you watch the guy slapping the girl, he's obviously holding back. Like, they're not just slapping full force. You'll see them like, they'll position the palm of their hand next to the girl's face first and then slap. Right? They don't they don't do a roundhouse full swing slap right into the girl's jaw. They'll put their hand right next to their face and do like a, something like that. So like these sort of like spanking type of, not even like a slap, but more like a spank on the face, right? But some girls, I guess they want to get their goddamn teeth knocked out. So this guy says, I can't ever treat anyone like this, which is why I'll effectively always remain a lonely virgin, and I am a tall, broad-framed, manly man before people suggest otherwise. And then this guy replied, he said, you were fed lies throughout all of your life. Come back to the natural world. Enjoy being an aggressive man with your woman. Let the devil out. And then this guy replies to the guy at the top. He says, no, you won't. You don't have to act like a nigga to get, you don't have to act like a nigger to get a wife. Acting like a nigger gets you mentally ill bitches that no sane person should put their cock in, much less marry. Most women don't enjoy being abused, and the ones that do aren't the sort you want to be in any serious relationship with. So, I grabbed these posts because you see just a different perspectives. Now, this guy at the top, he's like me, right? I'm not going to be I would never want to, I could do some, oh, we're having sex, I'm lightly choking and lightly slap. Okay, that's one thing. But close fist punching, nah. And then the first guy is basically saying, hey, this is the real world, dog. You got to get aggressive. Let the demon out. But you know what? I think there's some truth to what he's saying, though. I think there is some truth to what he's saying, as far as some guys really are too soft and passive with their woman, and so she can't respect him. But I just don't think that you have to beat a woman to make her respect you. In fact, I would just say, if you have to go to that level, why do you want her respect to begin with? Really think about that. You're willing to put yourself in position where she can ruin your life just to get her. Why do you need her respect so bad that you need to be beating her ass? I don't even think respect from somebody like that is even worth having. You're better off just leaving. So, my philosophy is just that, when a woman is disrespecting you in a relationship, it's best just not even to deal with her. Now, not saying that you just walk away at the first sign of disrespect, check her. And I think that's where the quote unquote devil comes into play, where, you can be assertive and set boundaries and let her know what it is and what it's not going to be. But I just don't think it's ever a good idea to try to use physical force in order to make a woman respect you and behave the way that you want her to. So this guy says, Anon, this is consensual sexual role play. You can see her smiling a bit in one moment. This has nothing to do with how women want to be treated outside of the bedroom or in the bedroom unless they tell you to do it. Don't confuse it. Now, this is one of the guys that was saying that, again, this is a couple, they do this, whatever, and fine. But I feel like he's also implying that this has nothing to do with how women want to be treated outside of the bedroom. That's just false. You can find women who will straight up say, I have an attraction to violent men. Criminals gotta have a roughneck. There's a whole song about that. There are literally women who are drawn to these types of men who are violent, and not just in the sense of a sexual role playing type of way. The type of man that would go upside their head and slap them and beat them, black eyes and busted lips. There are women who are literally into that in a disturbing way. So that's real shit. And so this guy says, I'm active on ERP forums. We have a few female users. They are easy to tell apart from the troons. That's code for trannies. By and large, the male role players prefer romance, breeding, and an equal mix of smut and story. The girls generally want nothing but rape, more rape, violence, Riona, rape, and again rape. The kinkiest male role players are often able to be flexible with their interests since they acknowledge it's fun to compromise. The females will not budge unless you are going to literally murder their character, bisect them, and feed them to your dog. I will never forget how one of the more brutal people I've met told me how even he was turned off by one of the female role players because she wanted him to shove broken glass into her character's pussy, rip it out of her lacerated labia, and then slit her throat with the shards and feed her the rest. This is verbatim what she wanted, and she told him they wouldn't be able to roleplay anymore unless he did specifically this. Even with the less depraved females, they don't ERP in a standard way. It's mostly flirting, setting up ideas, but never playing them out. They want to be attracted to the person behind the character, not just the profile. The one saving grace is that they tend to have very interesting and well-defined OCs, but that's very rare. One time I met a girl who liked to roleplay as low punny Pokemon, but she will also regularly post pictures of her actual face on her ERP account. One of the first things she asked me when I expressed interest in role-playing with her was if she would kill me in real life if we met. What the fuck? Oh boy. So this guy is in the, they have the whole ERP or role playing groups online where people role play different sexual scenarios with each other. I've never really been heavy into that. I'm more into just looking at straight up porn, but that's me. But yeah, this guy is basically saying that from his interactions with the women in these forums, in these spaces, a lot of them are into very violent, I mean really just the darkest fucked up type of sex, and you can't even really call it like abuse and goddamn broken glass in the vagina. But I'm not really surprised because I know what he's talking about. Like, this is something that's known that, as weird as it might sound, there are quite a few women who have like rape fantasies and fantasies of like very rough sex and being tied up, and some of them just, they go to the extent of wanting to have like fingers cut off and oh man, like, do I have to talk about it? Like, we all know what's up. We all know what's up. There's one girl in the porn industry, I forgot her name. It's like Caitlyn something, but like I can tell like she's one of them. Like, she has her surface level porn, but if you look at like the stuff that she keeps like under the bed, so to speak, like she's really nasty. Like she wants the guy, like she's the girl that's like slap me harder, punch me, like, and she'll start punching herself like she's fucking nuts.